Welcome to Amidst the Chaos, the podcast where we dare to find God in the middle of real life, not just the highlight reel. I'm your host, Amber Gallion, and around here we build on one foundation only, Jesus. In each episode, I'll share my journey with God, wins, wounds, questions and all, and how He brings order, clarity, and peace into the chaos of everyday life. So take a breath, bring whatever you're carrying today, and let's lean into the one who never changes, even when everything else does. Hey friend, welcome back to Amidst the Chaos. I'm Amber, and I'm really glad you're here. If you've listened to the previous episodes, you'll know we've been talking about how the enemy can steal your calling, but only your time, and how he loves to hijack God-given blueprints. Today we're shifting gears a bit. This is the part of the story where God starts reclaiming, restoring, and accelerating things. If you're new here, welcome. You're jumping in mid-story, but this episode can stand on its own. And if you want the full journey, you can always go back and listen to previous episodes later. All right, let's dive in. In the last episode, I shared how God showed me a life as a map vision, the golden path, different routes, and how the blueprint was from Him. But I wrapped it in the wrong spiritual package. This episode is about what happened when Jesus walked into that story. Because yes, the blueprint was hijacked for a while, but God does this wild thing. He doesn't just expose what went wrong, He starts to rebuild it with you. And often He goes back to desires and details you thought were long gone. For me, one of those threads was Spanish. A while after leaving New Age and surrendering my life to Jesus, I went to Spain. I already had a history with Spanish language. I'd studied it before, loved it, and it came naturally to me. But through all the detours, Argentina, Rotterdam, the relationship, New Age, I had basically shelved that part of me. It was like, yeah, that was a thing once, but life happened. And on that trip to Spain, something shifted. Being there, hearing the language all around me, feeling how quickly it came back, it was like a part of my heart woke up again. Not just in a this is nice way, but in a called way. I realized this isn't random. This is a line God has been drawing through my life for years. I started picking up Spanish again, Duolingo, practice, conversations, and while I was doing that, I kept having this sense, you're going to need this. This is connected to where I'm taking you next. There were even hints about Mexico and Spanish-speaking nations, like God was quietly pointing at a map saying, I haven't forgotten what I wrote over you, even if you walked away from it for a while. This is what I mean when I talk about God restoring what the enemy tried to steal. He doesn't just mend the visible damage. He resurrects old desires that were actually part of His original design. A year later, another major shift happened. I went to Bible school. Coming out of New Age, I knew I needed more than just a fresh start. I needed foundation. I needed truth, not just vibes. I needed to know the voice of God from the Word of God, not just from my feelings. I realized I built my life on sand. Bible school was God inviting me to start building on the rock Jesus talks about in Matthew 7. Suddenly, the language in my life changed from the universe to the Creator, from manifestation to surrender, from my truth to His truth. And something else started to crystallize there too, my calling, or more, His calling on the life He's given me. I began to notice this evangelistic thread. I care about people meeting Jesus, not just vaguely feeling better. People started saying, you're glowing, and I knew it wasn't me. It's that 2 Corinthians 3 verse 18 reality, being transformed into His image with increasing glory. Jesus calls us the light of the world in Matthew 5, and that Jesus glow people talk about is really just His light showing up through us. It's not that my life is suddenly easy or perfectly organized, it's not. It's that when you walk more and more in alignment with God's plan for your life, there's a different kind of energy in your life. You can be exhausted in the natural, but somehow still alive on the inside. Bible school doesn't magically fix everything, but it does mark this turning point. I'm not just patching up the old blueprint, I'm letting Jesus rewrite it with me. Now let's talk about something very real. Whenever you start stepping into your calling more intentionally, the resistance usually increases. I noticed this very clearly when I made all those decisions like getting baptized, joining a church, going to Bible school, and starting this podcast. I dealt with technical issues, distractions, random chaos, emotional pushback, being drained from energy. And every time I wanted to sit down and record, something seemed to happen. In the past, that would have been enough to make me stop. I would have taken it as a sign. Maybe this isn't the right time. Maybe I should wait. Maybe it's not that important. But now, with the lens I have, I see it differently. When there's unusually high resistance around something that lines up with God's character, His word, and His design for you, there's a good chance that thing is actually strategic in heaven. The podcast isn't just content creation for me. It's part of reclaiming my voice. It's part of walking out my golden path in real time, instead of just dreaming about it. So instead of backing off, I've started doing the opposite. Oh, there's pushback here? Okay, then this must matter. We're doing it anyway. Sometimes spiritual warfare looks dramatic. Sometimes it just looks like constant distraction and delay. And when you understand that the enemy's main tactic is to waste your time, you start treating those little interruptions differently. You stop giving him your schedule. You stop handing over days and weeks to procrastination. You decide, no, this is important. I may be recording it tired, messy, imperfect, but I'm recording it. Here's what I'm noticing as I walk this out. The chaos in my circumstances haven't magically disappeared. There are still bills to pay, responsibilities, co-parenting, full days, and a life that doesn't always look Instagram ready. But inside that chaos, something has shifted. There's more clarity, there's more courage, there's more alignment. I know I'm not just randomly trying new things anymore. I know I'm not building a business on my own strength or spiritual hacks. I'm partnering with a God who knows the end from the beginning, who saw every detour and still knows exactly how to get me and you back onto the golden path. And as he does that, the Jesus glow becomes a real thing. People notice. Not because you're perfect, but because you're walking with him. I want to land this episode with a few questions you can take into your own time with God. Where has God been reigniting an old desire or passion in your life, something you thought was over but keeps coming back? Are there areas where you've left New Age beliefs, self-help frameworks, or other spiritual mixes behind, but you never went back to reclaim the original God idea underneath? Where do you notice unusual resistance right now? And could that be a sign that what you're trying to do actually matters for your calling? You don't have to fix everything at once. You don't have to have a full plan mapped out. Just ask him, Lord, what is one step I can take this week that aligns me more with your blueprint for my life? One step in prayer, one step in obedience, one step in reclaiming a God-given idea and bringing it under his lordship. That's how restoration looks like in real time. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to actually sit with those questions and don't just listen and move on. Let God show you where He's been quietly reigniting things you once buried, and where He's inviting you to rebuild the blueprint with Him instead of without Him. Even with all my detours, I know the calling itself never disappeared. Romans 11, verse 29 says the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. In my own life, I can clearly see how He's weaving it all together. From the Amidst Argentina season, to Rotterdam and the hijacked blueprint, to Bible school, this podcast, and even the way He reignited my love for Spanish because it's still part of my future. You're not listening to a finished product. You're watching a restoration project in motion. Thank you so much for being here with me today on Amidst Chaos. If this encouraged you, you can share it with someone who's rebuilding their life with Jesus after detours, or who's trying to figure out what to do with old dreams that won't die. All right, we'll leave it here for today. Thanks for listening to Amidst the Chaos. I'm your host, Amber Gallion, and my prayer is that today's episode helped you see Jesus a little more clearly right in the middle of your own mess and motion. If this encouraged you, share it with someone who might need the reminder that God is building order, even when life feels anything but stable. Until next time, keep walking, keep wrestling, and keep building on the only foundation that won't move, Jesus.